First and foremost, namaskaram to you all. And it's my heartfelt gratitude to the Institute for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to be amongst you and share my learnings about intercultural communication. One. Two, I would also like to thank Professor Vasuki. She shares my mother's name for being a very good host in understanding and helping make things better for me and to be more familiar. And I also thank the management for setting up a platform for the young youths, intellectual thinkers like you, to understand the opportunities you can build through communication to enrich, enhance, and flourish in your career. Predominantly, my talk revolves around the practicality and research, because it's a research area, so I'll be talking more about research and how this helps. Today's workforce across the globe is connected like ever before. What once upon a time Macaulay called as a global village. Your communication is faster, your reactions are faster than ever before. One of the important thing in communication is the listening skill. Most of us hear what others say, but we forget to listen. Now, when you look at the topic, intercultural communication, what I would abbreviate as ICC. Now, if you look at where does this intercultural communication emerged from? Long back, when the Persians migrated to Gujarat, they wanted a place to live, and they approached the Gujarat ruler, at that time the Saurashtra and the Jharkhand. When they looked for, they said, the land is already full, and how will you live here? And the Parsi had asked the king for a bowl of milk. When they provided him a bowl of milk, he added sugar in it and said, this is how we will live with you. That means we will adopt your culture, we will adopt your tradition, and we will be one among you. And today, Parsi community is one of the most flourishing community in India. They might be a minority, very few numbers. They don't ask for reservation. They don't ask for any economic favors, but they are one of the highest contributors to Indian GDP. Now, all this is because the willingness and put forward to be part of a community. Now, once upon a time, it was a challenge and a nightmare for global companies to look at young professionals like you to pick up for the jobs. But today, that challenge has been solved because wherever we go, we find talent. As managers today, it is inevitable that we will be managing teams across the globe. From diverse culture, incorporating with difference, with reference to their worldviews, very strong worldviews, beliefs, values, customs, culture, lifestyle, and working habits. Now, these are the challenges which we need to work with. And many of you who live in hostels would have already faced this situation when you came to new cities to look into it. 3, though it's a common belief that humans across the globe are the same, but it's not true. The reason why is the greater degree of influence the culture brings, and it has and others brings in dissimilarities. Historically speaking, research says dissimilar culture always leads to conflict. But if you look at management, it says a source of conflict can always be a source of synergy. That means don't look at it as a conflict, but look at it as a synergy. Like for example, in a mathematics, you say 1 plus 1 is 2, but as a student of management, 1 plus 1 can be 5. That's synergy. Now, why is ICC important? Now, why is this topic so dominant? Or why is it looking forward? Like for example, in my organization, in most of the IT organizations which I work, it's always a challenge for us. How do I attend calls with my US counterpart, French counterpart, Australian counterpart, Russian counterpart? Because everyone brings in new perspectives and new thought process. For example, when we are in a meeting with an American counterpart in a day-to-day meetings, they don't beat around the bush. The Americans expect you to be straightforward, open. They share a point and then go to the next point. For us, before we even recollect, he moves to the third point. So, my adaptation is required. Similarly, if you look at when we work with the Chinese, they don't open up. You tell them 10 things, they don't even reciprocate. We get frustrated because they don't share their opinion. Now, in an Indian culture, you always go and ask, hey, is my shirt good? I ask your opinion. Even though I like it, I ask your opinion. And when somebody shares their opinion, we feel happy. Now, 2 aspects. 3. Now, intercultural communication revolves around verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal could be what I speak, what you listen, the way I deliver. Non-verbal could be the many gestures I demonstrate, my body language, my eye contact, my hand movement. Now, all this thing differs from person to person. Now, for example, we light a lamp. That's the culture. Now, how do you reciprocate when you meet somebody? The greatest example of intercultural communication would have been if you have observed the G20 summit, the 2-day program organized by the Indian government. How people communicated through various means. 1. Most of the foreign delegates, the presidents and prime ministers, the excellencies of various nations demonstrated what they wanted to communicate through their dress, the sense of dress. Some people communicated with their warmth. Some people shook hands, some people hugged, some people kissed. Now the question for me is, whom do I kiss, whom do I hug, whom do I shake hands? Now, I need to understand my person, who's the other side, before even I put my step forward. Now, going to another area. What is the purpose of ICC? Why do you require ICC? Now, the most important aspect is ICC helps you to prevent miscommunication and mismatch of communication style. Like Mr. Sandil was talking about the gestures. Now, for example, if I raise my hand, what does this indicate? Now, this indication is across the globe is different sense. Now, as a student in India, you raise your hand to seek permission to ask a question or answer a question. Whereas in a European country, when I say this, it means stop. Whereas in an African nation, when I say this, show my palm, it means I have 5 fathers. Amazing, right? Now, even when I say a thumbs up, in European, Western and American countries, it's good. That means you can go ahead. Where in an Islamic country, it's a rude gesture. Now, how do I understand? Now, what makes intercultural communication important in workplace? Today, as we deal with diverse people from across the globe, take in my office, I'll have Europeans working, I'll have Africans working, I'll have Germans working. And we will have our counterparts, Indian students, Indian colleagues working in various countries. Now, how do we manage in the meetings? So it's basically how do we understand their preferences. 2, as soon as you say a military organization or a private institution or a government institution, we immediately catch upon something called communication. It communicates saying this military organization is authoritarian. A government organization is more hierarchical. A private institution gives me more opportunity for my career progression. Now, these are something which they have demonstrated without saying in an organization. But remember, all these institutions wants to flourish. Now, how do they train the Indian foreign service diplomats? One of the toughest exams in India is the UPSC exam. And people at your age who are district collectors, how do they manage the entire district of Villupuram at age of 21, 22 or even 25? Now, how are these officers trained to communicate? For example, if you look at the YouTube and watch Dr. Jaishankar, the foreign minister, how does he handle press conferences in different nations? In some nations, he will be very straightforward. In some nations, he will never even give an answer. With some press conferences from different journalists, he will just snub them. Now, this is all about diplomacy and how do you communicate to put forward your words. Now, how do I develop ICC, to be part of ICC? What is that I need to develop? The first thing is self-awareness. To communicate, it is not always necessary to understand the other person, but it is more important to understand myself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where am I strong at? What are my competency? And I use my strengths to communicate and to get my point of view delivered. 2, empathy. While communicating, it is always important to put yourself in somebody's shoe, the other person's shoe, so that he or she is part of us and we walk together. I'll give you a small example. This happened when I was newly into the organization, maybe 4 or 5 years old, when we had a corporate dinner with some of the clients. And one guy was from a rural area in one of the remotest part of India who was part of the meeting, very intelligent guy. When after the dinner was served, a finger bowl was kept and he immediately drank the finger bowl instead of washing because he has not seen it. He thought it's something to drink. And you know what my foreign counterparts did? They didn't say anything. They also did the same thing. The only thing what they wanted to communicate is, we are with you. They don't want to embarrass somebody for a mistake. They adopted it. 3, respect. Any communication starts with respect for ourselves and for the other people. How you want to treat them. 4, emotional intelligence. One of the barriers or the parameter for your success is emotional intelligence. How you use your intelligence to communicate, to convey and deliver. 4, adaptability. How do I adapt to situations? How do I adapt to new challenges? How do I adapt to challenges? Next, patience. One of the famous saying is, acquaintance without patience is like a candle with no light. It's a proverb in Persia. They say, when I make friends without patience is like a candle without light. That means some people learn fast, some people learn slow. But for the person who's part of it, you need to have patience to understand, help and deliver. Now, these are some of the aspects which we look at. Then what I wanted to tell you in another short is, at your workplace, how do you apply ICC? The most challenging aspect. There are 2 aspects. One is at personal level, one is at work level. At personal level, how do I apply my communication? Where I am, what I do, how do I do, all makes a difference. At work level, I need to understand the organization context, I need to understand the job context, and I also need to understand the geographical context for me to perform. It's like a new bride after marrying goes into a in-laws place to adapt. First thing is she need to understand, know about the whereabouts and become one among them. Now, another interesting aspect is marketing and advertising. One of the key issues. Why do global companies fail miserably in various aspects? When they do not communicate based on your culture, diversity, and geographics, they fail miserably. Example, IKEA, a renowned brand, the successful product in Sweden. But when they launched in China, it was a total miserable product. Similarly, McDonald's, before they launched in India, they did a survey for almost 3 years to understand the cultural context of India, and then they set up their first store. Now, this is how it works. And what are the skills you need to develop? The skills you need to develop are 5 skills. Simple as you need to bring in self-awareness as a must. 2, how do I appreciate and recognize people? Again, research says that simple appreciation, saying good work done, thank you, I acknowledge a contribution to the organization, enhances or increases productivity by 27%. This was Margaret Greenberg's study in US. In my own study in the IT organization, it has been observed when managers appreciate team members, 2 things happens. One is their longevity, that means they stay in the organization increases, their trustworthy with the manager builds higher, and 3, they become productivity because they are being constantly saying that it's because of you the organization is performing. Now with this, I would like to conclude saying one of the most important things is diversity. How do we manage diversity is the greatest challenge. And challenges always comes at every stage. Diversity is not only a challenge, but also an opportunity to work with every different people across. And this brings the scope for ICC or intercultural communication. Intercultural communication is a big topic, a vast subject. As you go deeper, you'll find more pearls in it. So with this, I conclude. Thank you very much.
உலகத்தரமான கல்லூரி உங்கள் ஊரில் தெய்வானை அம்மாள் காலேஜ் ஃபார் விமன் அட்டானமஸ் விழுப்புரம். உங்கள் எதிர்காலம் உங்கள் கையில்.